And now, it's time for another Dice Tower review with Ryan Metzler.
Hey everyone, Ryan Metzler here, and today we're going to be taking a look at a small little card game. It's going to be a very quick video. We're going to take a look at No Thanks, which is a game about collecting cards of different values in order to try and basically have the lowest score. And you're going to do so by passing on cards by playing chips, which will also give you kind of a negative victory point value at the end of the game. So it's good to keep your chips, but it's also good to pass on certain cards. So why don't we take a look at what comes inside this box, how the game plays, and then I'll give you my final thoughts on it. So here you can see the contents of the box of No Thanks. You're pretty much looking at a deck of cards and a bunch of red little tiddlywink type chips. And the cards are going to be numbered. They're all numbered cards, and they're basically 3 through 35. And what you're going to do at the beginning of the game is you're going to take this deck, you're going to shuffle it up, and you're going to take 9 cards out of the deck. So we just simply 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and set them aside. Each player is going to get 11 of these chips, and this will be their own personal supply that they would have. They'd take these chips aside, and they would use these throughout the game in order to avoid taking cards. So everybody would start with the same amount of chips. And what you're going to do is each turn or each round, you're going to flip one of these cards over, and you're going to decide whether or not you want to take this card. Now each card is worth face point values, so this is 20 points, and you want to have the low score in this game. So you do not probably want 20 points. The cards only go up to 35, but maybe you want to start with 20. And the reason you'd want to take cards is because players are going to put chips on them. So let's say that the first player decides he doesn't want this, and he puts a chip on it. And the second player doesn't want it either, and the third player doesn't want it. And let's say we're playing a 3-player game, so now we're back to the first player, and he still doesn't want the card. He might be thinking about taking it at this point, but maybe he's just not convinced. So he would play a chip on it, and let's say that the next player decides, okay, I'm willing to take the 20 with 4 chips, and they'd take these chips, they'd add them to their supply, and they would take the 20 card and put it in front of them. So now this player has the 20. The way to get less points is to get runs of cards. So now we have the 33, and that's even worse. So players would put a bunch of tokens on it, and eventually someone would take this 33 and put it in front of them. So let's say this player over here has it. And the next card comes up, the 14. Well, that's not so bad. Maybe this player over here takes it after putting some chips on it, or maybe immediately. And they flip the next card, and they would start with passing. And the player who takes the previous card is always going to start the next round, until eventually you're going to see cards come up that are kind of in sequence with other cards. So here's a good example. Let's say that this 25 is out, and that this player here takes it, or a player takes it, and they have the 25. They've taken some chips with it, likely, and added chips to their supply, and now they flip the next card, and the next card is the 26. Now, in this game, if you have runs of cards or sequential cards, you're only going to get points for the lowest card in that sequence. So there's no reason for this player not to take the 26. However, they may not want to take it right away because nobody else likely wants the 26 unless somebody already has the 27, because the 26 would make their 27 worth no points, and now this 26 would only be worth points. Remember, you only get points for the lowest card in the run, so if this player were to take this, they'd have 25 points and the 26 would be cancelled. But right now, let's say they have the 25, they would probably put a token on it in order to pass it around the table since no one else is going to want it, forcing those players to give them more tokens. So this player would put a token on it, and the next player would put a token on it, and then they'd likely take this card, adding the tokens to their supply, and putting it on the table like this, showing that the 25 is the lowest card in the run. In this way, if you can get multiple cards in a row, now we have the 28, so they probably don't want that, and it would go around several times before someone took it. But let's say they eventually got down and the 24 came into play. They would take the 24 and they'd put it on top of this, and now it would only be worth 24 points. Now this could be risky because what if the 24 is not in the game? What if it's in those 9 cards that you dealt out? Maybe you'll never get the card that you want, and in this case, the 24 actually isn't in the cards that I had. It's actually been dealt out of the game, so I couldn't possibly get the 24 that I'm waiting for. In this case, you're going to end up with those 25 points, not 24 points, but it's kind of worth the risk sometimes, or you have to try and judge whether it's worth the risk to wait for a card. Maybe this player would take the 28, because maybe they'll get the 27, but if the 27 is not in the deck, they're going to have extra points. You'll continue doing this until all of the cards in the game have been dealt out and everyone has taken them. And what you're going to do is count the points of all of the lowest cards of all of your runs. Once you've done that, you'll see who has the lowest score after subtracting the number of chips they have. So each chip is 1 negative point. Whoever has the lowest score after counting all of the values of their lowest cards and subtracting the chips is going to be the winner. And so that's No Thanks by Z-Man Games. And it's a pretty light, very simple card game for 3 to 5 players. There's not a whole lot to it. The only real strategy is in a kind of press your luck type scenario where you're hoping to flip the cards that you need, kind of hoping that the card you need is still in the deck instead of being set aside in those 9 cards, so that you can get lower point values than all of your opponents. Now there is some strategy in placing chips out, hoping that you get your fellow players to put more chips on a card that you want without them realizing that you want it. But all in all, a very simple game, and that doesn't make it a bad game. I actually enjoy this game quite a bit. It's very simple, very light, and a nice filler to just kind of throw out there when you don't feel like playing something else for the night. So if you're looking for a good filler game, one that has a good amount of press your luck and a little bit of strategy included, take a look at No Thanks. I think it really fits that spot nicely.
Thanks for joining us today. For more written, audio, and video reviews, as well as the #1 board game podcast, check out the website at www.thedicetower.com. Until then, this is Eric Summerer, and you've been watching The Dice Tower.